Barney writes in from Indonesia, originally from Vancouver, Canada, though. He says, what are your guys' thoughts on the official announcement from BioWare to not provide any DLC for the single-player mode in Mass Effect Andromeda? Well, I agree Andromeda had issues. It's like he was listening to the podcast, Joe.
Oh, wow.
I thought they'd established a decent enough game and story framework to create some compelling single-player DLC. A successful DLC could help to restore confidence with Mass Effect fans or renew interest in purchase of the game. To simply walk away from such a huge title seems very odd to me. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit before and it was kind of like bubbling, but on Sunday, I think it was, or over the weekend, they had a statement. They're like, well, that's it for updates to Mass Effect Andromeda. Bye, everybody!
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's not, unfortunately, I mean, like, we've talked about this in the podcast before. I think I like that game more than most people do.
On planet Earth.
Yeah.
Yes.
But with that being said, I still think that there's something about that that's just poison. Like there was just so much negativity swirling around that game that you have to ask, like, whether the effort put into developing anything additional for it is just sort of like, you know, throwing good money after bad.
I mean, it's even No Man's Sky is an interesting analogy to think about. Like, there was also a crazy poisonous launch for those guys, and they've been trying to dig out for a while now. Just had the big update recently, which some people are into. It kind of nuked a lot of planets and whatnot, which is a bizarre, interesting story. But they've been working so hard to dig themselves out of that hole, and it's debatable whether or not they have. And the idea of Mass Effect and EA investing even more money into Andromeda, which was already a, 6-year development? 5-year?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
But those are such different experiences too, you know, like No Man's Sky doesn't have a story. It's just a big sandbox. You can add interesting stuff to that and kind of change how people think about it. I don't know how you would, you know, what story stuff are they going to add on to Mass Effect Andromeda that doesn't make me hate that entire crew of characters or make me hate them less, you know?
Well, they'd be diminished if, like, you know, the Quarian arc lands and then say, hey, come on board. All the Quarians are having a good time. Let's all tell some jokes.
I don't know. I think they sense a sentiment from the community that sort of like people are kind of done with that game. And like, apart from just the like BioWare faithful.
Yeah.
I think that there's a large number of people who just sort of like put that game down and decided they're done with it.
And especially when people seem really excited about Anthem, you know, why not just move on?
Well, that's exactly what the studio is doing. I mean, Joe and I were just at BioWare Montreal. It feels like not that long ago at all. And now they announced that part of that team is going to be helping out with Motive, with Battlefront 2, which is bizarre because like the same development floor. Just imagine it's rotating your desk a little bit, and now you're working on Battlefront. And then also some people at BioWare Montreal are going to be supporting Anthem now, coming out of Edmonton. But it's bizarre to think about that cover story trip in retrospect, Joe, just because felt like it was such a long buildup of Montreal, like one step at a time, doing DLC, doing multiplayer. Now we're getting Andromeda. Here we go. Let's do it. Oh, people didn't like it, and the studio's basically gone as far as like a Mass Effect main development studio. It's just bizarre how fleeting everything in this industry is. Yeah,
well, and then there's also the fact that like BioWare's general manager Aaryn Flynn left, and while he didn't cite Mass Effect Andromeda specifically, like I wonder if there was some sort of pressure because of that to like, you know.
I'm sure. I mean, it can't be a coincidence that it came out kind of disappointed, and it's like, all right, general manager, we got to shake things up. And now Casey Hudson, the original creative director for Mass Effect, went back and now is in Edmonton, is going to be leading as general manager for the entire studio, all 3 studios, I guess, at this point. But it is still bizarre to me. I went back and searched it just to double check. Casey Hudson tweeted about Mass Effect Andromeda once in 2015, and that was about the trailer that had Jennifer Hale in it, voicing Shepard, where it was like the NASA footage and stuff.
Was he still there at the studio?
No. But that's the only time he ever said, like, hey, looking good, Andromeda. Like, you would think, don't you think it's a little weird? You would think you would tweet out something like, hey, congratulations to my old buddies at BioWare for getting this out the door or
I don't
something.
know. There's always some, like, there's always some sort of weird, like, publicly showing support for a competitor that I think is, I don't think I would be like hesitant about it, but I don't know. Maybe the optics on that are weird.
Yeah, I guess so. It's sad to see Aaryn Flynn go. I still think it's probably the most insight into that game's development is a video interview we did during that month of coverage that you can go back and search for. It's Aaryn Flynn, Game Informer interview probably, talking about Mass Effect and Andromeda. And like the first third of that video interview is a lot about Andromeda's development and kind of having to pull in more studios and more talent. And it seemed like it took a lot of heavy lifting to get that game out the door. But I remember on that cover story trip, a huge takeaway was like, I remember the creative director, Mac Walters, even saying this, like, we still have content coming in. Like, we'll see how it goes. It might be, the sentiment was like, this thing's coming in hot, but also the sentiment was, this reminds us a lot of Mass Effect 1, and Mass Effect 1 and almost every Mass Effect feels like it's coming in hot to the landing, and everything works out okay. And in Mass Effect Andromeda, it was it was a bumpy landing for that baby.
Yeah, it was a bit bumpier. But I do want to mention one thing about this too, because I've been seeing a lot of stories out there in the wake of this, like the story that the reader's referencing there.
Yeah.
Saying that like, well, Mass Effect as a franchise is done.
Well, I think that was coming from Kotaku had an interesting write-up, and they had sources saying like that EA was putting Mass Effect on hold for a while.
Yeah, and I think and that makes sense. But like it's this weird sort of game of telephone that happens in reporting.
Yeah.
That like I straight up saw stories being reported that were just like Mass Effect as a franchise is dead. And like EA's Patrick Soderlund responded to that specifically by saying like, why would we just say Mass Effect is dead? It's a great universe and like it's a popular series. We just need to make sure we're doing the right thing with it. And I think that's the important thing to take away from this is like, are we going to see Mass Effect Andromeda 2? Probably not. But like as a franchise, I don't think Mass Effect is done.
But it'll take a long time to build that up again.
But yeah, we're not going to see it. We're not going to see it in the next few years.
Hopefully it's not a Dead Space situation here.
Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version and listen to new episodes airing every Thursday. We cover big games on the horizon, games that we've just reviewed. We have long-form developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So check it out every Thursday.